The boycott, divestment and sanctions campaign against Israel is dangerously wrong, because beneath the surface, it's an attempt to delegitimize Israel as a prelude to its elimination. No Jew and no humanitarian can stand by and see that happen. Besides which, it will harm the very people it seeks to help, prolong the situation it seeks to end, and lead to wrongs in the name of rights. I support the right of Palestinians to a state of their own, and the right of Palestinian children to a future of dignity and hope. But the BDS campaign will achieve neither of these things. Let me explain why. Human rights are the rights we have because we are human. They are universal or they are nothing. So the test of any movement in support of human rights is it really universal? Or is it a matter of rights for some, but not for others? If the BDS movement were really about human rights, its supporters would be protesting the breakdown of human rights in countries across the Middle East, in Africa, and around the world. They would be demonstrating against the barbarism of ISIS. They would be campaigning against the abuse of human rights by Hamas in Gaza. Any nation can be held to account at the bar of human rights, but in a world awash with human rights abuses, to focus on one nation only, and that the only effective democracy in the Middle East, looks less like a campaign for human rights than a campaign against Israel's very right to be.
Whereby people from different organizations, different European states would explain the way they combat BDS and the delegitimation of Israel. This is very important. This is very important for Crif. This is one of our main battles. I will start with holding the microphone to Ben Moore, who is the speaker of the Israeli Ministry of Strategic Affairs, and we'll take it from there. We'll let him present the report that probably you've had the possibility to get a copy of. It's a very important document. Let me start and ask you to welcome Ben Moore from the Israeli Ministry of Strategic Affairs to present to you what this report is all about.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank, obviously, the Crif for hosting me, and I also would like to thank all of you. I was worried as an Israeli coming that I wouldn't be on time, but you made me feel right at home. So we're starting exactly on time if we were in Israel, so thank you for that. We all know... well, this is starting up. I can actually do it. Actually, Meli, can you do that in the meantime? I'll talk. And everyone can hear me this way, right? Yes. I move around, so pardon me. We know BDS is bad. We think it's bad for at least two reasons. One, that it's anti-Semitic, and two, that there must be something deeper wrong with it. It must have a connection to the Palestinian terror that we're seeing. Many of us feel this, but not many of us know, is it true? And if it's true, what do we do with it? And if it's true, and I'm doing something, how can I be effective? If I'm the only person doing it, and we all have this feeling, the Jew, I'm one person, how can I possibly make a difference? And sorry, I'm just going to say France in my American English, not France. And France, if anything, you have one of the largest challenges in accomplishing this. As Robert was mentioning before, I only have 10 minutes to quickly talk about what the Israeli ministry is doing, what Israeli government is doing. Are we there? I can do this.
No.
All right, I'm just going to do it. If it comes up, it comes up. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Although it really helps. BDS, when we say it's anti-Semitic, I don't know if any of you saw this report in the back. It was working before, but that's how we do it. I'm not even going to try to announce it in French, but I'm going to, it's in English. The English version is behind the mask. What I want to tell you and want to point out with what's the importance of a report like this and another report that when it does show up, I'll talk to you about, we need to understand that just by saying BDS is anti-Semitic doesn't work. A little bit about myself. My name's Ben, as you know. I'm part of Israel's Ministry of Strategic Affairs. It's part of the Israeli Prime Minister's office, and we are charged with leading the effort on the Israeli government against BDS throughout the world. My job there, I'm the foreign media spokesperson. I speak with all of the newspapers, including many French, Le Monde, Le Figaro, Libération, AFP, Agence France-Presse. Ready? Great. Right in time. So I know how hard it is that when you take it, how to convince someone, in my case it's journalists, but in yours it could be journalists, it could be friends, it could even be family, that we unfortunately know, how to get it and why is it important that the information we have, excellent, what's important about it. So let's begin. This is not the right one, but there's another one. There's another one similar to that? Anyways. This will only just come out later in the end.
This one?
No, there's another one.
Yeah,
Yes, that's this one.
Okay.
This one.
Okay.
This is it.
Okay.
Excellent. Just go to the very top.
You have
Yeah. This one. Yeah. No, this is perfect. I can do it like this. Okay. And now let's get the show on the road. Okay. When we see anti-Semitism, imagine, if you will, we're back 70 years ago, right here in the streets of Paris. We'd see similar pictures like this, or like this, with the Jew spreading his hate, or like this, that the Jew is buying the government support, in this case of US Congress, but I'm sure you also have the same. But these pictures are not from 70 years ago. These, if it doesn't freeze, Badir won second place in a cartoon contest 4 years ago. The second picture, again, is showing Jews spreading grenades throughout the world. This is from the UK. This is from, if I'm not mistaken, last year. And this is from this year, where we have, I don't know if you recognize this American politician, Ilhan Omar, a young, upcoming Democratic politician. And we're showing that Jews are buying the influence. But all of these cartoons, and everything I'm showing you, is that even though you have the old anti-Semitism of 7 decades ago, of Jews control the world, Jews control Congress, Jews control the economy, these are happening today. And what's more important, and that we're able to show and report, I'll extend on this later, is that this is not being spread by far-right, crazy anti-Semites. You have that comedian here in France, I forgot who made this. Well, you all know him, I'm sure. That's not him. These are from the same people that are promoting BDS. The same BDS that says, does anyone know what their motto, what they stand for? No. Freedom, justice, and equality. Are those the messages that a human rights organization spreads? That Jews control Congress, Jews control the world? Far from it. Is this freedom? By the way, all of these examples that I'll be showing over the next 5 minutes are all from BDS leadership members. Crossing Israel off the map. Let's ask the leader
No
of the
Palestinian,
BDS.
rational Palestinian, not a sellout Palestinian, would never accept a Jewish state in Palestine.
Omar Barghouti, I'm sure many of you know who he is, the leader of the BDS movement, who lives in Israel, by the way, and also has his degree from Tel Aviv University, even though he calls for a boycott of it. Is this justice? Are these what people that call justice? Is this what they say? We need to put Zionists in concentration camps. The world would be so much better without Jews. Again, all from recognized leadership of the BDS. These aren't, and none of this is hidden. This is all public knowledge. And equality. If any of you have been to Amsterdam, I'm sure you've all recognized this lovely man. He sits in the main square. Every week, I think every day.
He tries to be there as often as
He tries to be there as often. I know I was there. I saw him in my vacation, but yes, he's there. So what are we doing about this? I said earlier that we have these feelings of there's something wrong with BDS. I showed you a little bit about it, and with a limited time. One of the things we did earlier this year, in February, was we released a report about terrorists in suits. Has anyone heard of this report? Just raise your hand if you have. The front row? Okay, great. I expected you all did your homework, that's good. This report, and I'll get to how you can get this, all of this info we share, shows that over 30 members of BDS organizations have ties, including current ties to BDS and terrorist organizations, Hamas, and another one called the PFLP, the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. Let's meet some of our honored guests. This next slide. Click the wrong one. There we go. Okay, these are some. On the left is what they claim they are. On the right is what they really are. Okay, Shoan Jabali, Al-Haq, he recruited terrorists. 2 life sentences for PFLP. He's part of Palestinian Center for Human Rights. Yaakov Udeh. These are all info that is all public information. And here, Lasmia Odeh, she's been to Europe multiple times. She was recently kicked out of the United States for her ties to terror. She took part in bombing. If this information I'm telling you, if it's we say in Hebrew the Chadesh, if this is sort of the first time you're hearing about it, the question shouldn't be, why is that? Because we all know why. Who questions when someone says, I'm a human rights? How many of you have gone to the Red Cross and see who works in the Red Cross and if they really care about human rights? It never even crosses anyone's minds. I speak to hundreds of journalists based in Israel and all around the world. Some of them have been there decades. When I show them this information, you should see their face. It's just like yours. How is this even possible? It's because no one even thought to ask that there could be a problem with human rights. And this is not by chance that they're using human rights and progressive values. The thing about human rights and progressive values is as follows. It's not as follows. Human rights and progressive values today have something. Why are they using that? I'll tell you why. In the 40s, 50s, and 60s, Israel's neighbors used war to try to take over Israel. We had the Independence War, we had the 6-Day War, and we had Yom Kippur War. After that, they realized we're not going to defeat Israel militarily. So then what did they do? Starting at the end of the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, terrorism. Air France, Uganda, and the Entebbe operation. After 40 years, they haven't dropped it completely, but they realized that terror is not the way to go. What we did find in the beginning of the 2000s is that many of the Palestinian terrorist organizations have used the cover of human rights, of progressive, intersectionality, of all these buzzwords to hide under this mask of I'm a human rights, and no one questions them. And the proof I just showed you, they're going along, they're being invited to the EU Parliament. Countries of Europe are giving millions of euros to them every year, including the EU, with no questions asked. So what are they doing? Terrorist groups and BDS movements do not accept Israel's rights to exist. This is complementary to terror, okay? Where you asked before, you tried to destroy Israel with war or terror. Now we're going to try to destroy Israel by delegitimizing it. I know I'm low on time. Go as fast as possible. So now we have, though, behind the mask. So that we showed terror, and that was from February. Now what we're showing, and this connects to the Crif, their this year's theme of anti-Semitism. Now we have shown over 80 examples from the BDS leadership of clear-cut examples of anti-Semitism. No hiding behind, I'm a human rights activist. When you take this report, either in its print form or in its digital form, these are the tools that me, as the Israeli government, hopes to give you. And when you come up to them and you say BDS is anti-Semitic, and they say, no, it's not. You say, really? Then explain this, and I'll show you what I mean. It's important to note, though, that when you're showing that BDS is anti-Semitic, why it is anti-Semitic. It's not because, oh, this Israeli government guy told me it. There's the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. It's a term, an organization that defines anti-Semitism. It has 16 different cases. I'm only going to show you 3. Comparing Israel to Nazis, has anyone seen that? That's anti-Semitic. Using double standards with Israel and other countries, anti-Semitic. That's probably the most common one. Denying the Jewish people their right to exist in Israel, anti-Semitic. This is probably the point that has grown the most over the past 5 years. I'm telling this from a personal example. I used to never encounter it when I was going through, I used to speak a lot in Europe and the United States. And now, though, it is almost acceptable to say that Israel has no right to exist. And I'm not talking about, Judea, Samaria, West Bank, however you define it. I'm saying Tel Aviv is not. In May 2016, IRA, which is again the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, was unanimously adopted 31 countries. Since then, it has been officially adopted by many of the European countries, including France. I'll point why that's important towards the end. Germany. The BDS reminds us of a most terrible phase of German history. Kauft nicht bin Juden. Don't buy from the Jews. The United States, obviously, for lack of time, I won't read them all. And just 2 months ago, the UN recognizes the problem with BDS. Again, why am I pointing these examples? This is your ammunition. By Israel, we're putting this all in together into a nice, easy French report we translated just for you, that you'll be able to use this. And there are ways that you can use this. And there are things that you can use it for specific goals. Not just to tell the world, but I want to give you some ideas for what you can do with it. One, it's important to note, we are not saying that the BDS, everyone who supports BDS is anti-Semitic. It's important to realize there are some people that really believe that they're doing God's work, and God bless them. That's not the problem. The problem is you have a movement that is stoked in anti-Semitism. It is the leadership as anti-Semitism. So when you encounter good-hearted people, I meet people all the time that say, Ben, my friend, he supports BDS, but he's not anti-Semitic. Then you need to tell them, if you're supporting BDS, I can't even say the two without getting confused, but the point is, if you're saying you're supporting BDS, you're supporting a movement that at its core and its leadership actively promotes anti-Semitism. The BDS is by nature anti-Semitic, since its core tenet and leadership rejects Israel's right to exist. What's also another problem with BDS, and I'm coming to a close, that by turning BDS into an okay concept of calling for the destruction of Israel, what we all know and experience is that to take away the Jews from Israel and Israel from the Jews Whether you're a Jew that doesn't care about Israel, is against Israel, the other side doesn't care. And the other side will connect you. And by turning Israel into a pariah state, into a country that's not accepted in the world, that it causes a stigmatization of Jews everywhere, and it desensitizes the West to anti-Semitism. What does that mean? That means if I say I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm anti-Zionist. That's a common phrase that's coming. I'm anti-Zionist, and that's why I can say that you Jews don't have any right to have their own country. Eventually, if we're speaking 70 years ago, you repeat a lie enough times, people start to believe it. And then if you can say that about Jews, that they don't deserve a country, maybe they don't deserve rights, maybe they don't deserve to be here, maybe they don't deserve the right to live. So what were we calling for? No, zero tolerance of BDS and anti-Semitism. Zero funding, zero terror, zero anti-Semitism. And what are the goals that we're calling for, and how we want you to do this? This is the most important slide. Anyone that was taking pictures, this is the one to do. This is what we want and what you can do if you know to do BDS and anti-Semitism. First of all, you have your politicians, talk to them. Say, look, France signed on to the IRA definition. Enforce it. You have people here, especially in France, if anywhere in Europe, especially that compares Israel to Nazis, that says Israel doesn't have a right to exist, that uses double standards. Those are things you can call them out, and France itself, the government, says that it needs to abide by it. Continue to expose the connections. We're a government ministry, but we can always use help. If you know things, there are many things that we don't know. Let me point that, I don't know how your experience with other government ministries, but for us, we can't do it alone. We need you. And when I mean you, I mean each and every one of you. Okay? I'm the only spokesperson for all the media throughout the world. I was just speaking to someone earlier. I can't reach Le Monde on a daily basis. I can't reach La République on a daily basis. I can't do Liberation. I can't reach them. But you can. You have more time than I do to reach all these people, and I'm telling you personally, I can ensure that help. Call on the national and local government. Don't forget your mayors. Remove anti-Semitic content, and encourage other countries to pass similar resolutions. With that, as they say, really the tip of the iceberg. I could speak much longer. I just want to say how we as a ministry, we do this, and how we do this online, and you guys should be made aware of it. I'll just do it really quick. The Israeli ministry, I don't lead this, but a colleague of mine does, Ido Cohen, so I give him credit where credit is due, has created the Digitell network. This unites all of the social media experts, pro-Israel social media experts, into one space. I'll let my colleague Shul expand on that more, but what we are doing is that we have people that can reach 10 million people together in the same room, devising strategies, tactics, and whatnot, and how to spread the message about Israel. We're all over the world, including France, obviously. We created this network. There's Mark to where we're in Europe. Some of our, from 2018 in numbers, we've reached 18 million people, 10 million videos. These numbers have more than doubled themselves so far, and I won't get into the rest. So what's important, again, to realize is as follows, to summarize. One, that okay, Ben, you talked about all these great, does the mouse not work? Boom. Ben, you talked about, well, I don't know about this. All this great information. Where do I find it? What can I do with it? I already told you what you can do with it. You can go, you can talk to your journalists, you can talk to your politicians, you can talk to whoever. Why is this not showing up?
What's the web address of the...
It's 4IL. Yeah, I'm showing you.
Okay.
I don't know why it's... I just want this to show up. It's important.
Vérifier un tout petit.
It's already open here. Anyways,
Do you
while
have it
they're
in
bringing it
French?
up. What?
Do you have this?
Okay, so good question. He asked, do we have it in French?
Yeah.
Okay, so not only do we have this report in French, but over the last report we said we're fully aware that if it's not in French, then French people don't read it. So all of our content is in French. It's all there, downloadable. The website, while they're bringing it up, is 4, the number 4, IL, so for Israel, .org.il. And there is a website that you can go and get all of the resources you need, whether it be Terrorist and Such, that shows the terrorism within BDS, Behind the Mask, which again I'm not going to try to pronounce in French. And we also have a report about how European governments are funding BDS, which is the money trail, which is also, that might not be in French, but that you could also show how France itself and other European governments are supporting. I don't want to take any more time, I know I spoke a lot. Thank you very much, thank you for hosting me.
Thank you so much, Ben, to be here today and to have this amazing introduction. I think not a lot of people here knew before about the Unmasked BDS report and the Terrorist in Suit report, unless you went on Crif website, which I hope. You will find the reports in French just in the room, and please really read it carefully and spread the news. It's very important, as Ben told you. So we're very happy to have Ben here today and to have the Digitell members here today. So I'm going to say a few words about Digitell. Digitell is a network of digital experts mobilized in the fight against anti-Semitism and delegitimization of Israel. This network gathers 100 people around the world and operates 24/7. So, as Ben said, we are from more than 18 countries in the world. Digitell was established in 2018 by the Israeli Ministry of Strategic Affairs, and Crif joined the network in March 2019 during a 3-day conference in Israel. And since then, along with other experts and digital ambassadors for Israel, Crif has been mobilizing daily on the internet to fight against Israel hatred, its delegitimization, and against all the boycott movements. So today we have Germany, we have the Netherlands, we have Portugal with us to talk about BDS in Europe, and I think it's very important to do this network because anti-Semitism is the theme of this convention, so anti-Zionism should be a network of this convention. Robert, if you will, the stage is yours.
If you all want to take your seats. It's my pleasure to introduce our guests today, who represent different countries, as Marisa just said. First of all, thank you very much to Ben for this excellent presentation. You will read the report. It's really worth it. You will understand what BDS really is about. And it's very important because it's very different from what you read in the press on a daily basis. Let me welcome Arif Nathan Curl from Germany. He is the president of the Young Forum of the German Israeli Association. Romeo Monteiro from Portugal. Romeo is the manager of the largest pro-Israel Facebook page and Facebook group in Portugal. He's a human rights activist, a speaker, and an opinion writer. Marisa Seberger, she's working at Crif, and she just gave the introduction. And she deserves your applause. And Elkan van der Raaf from the Netherlands, who is digital in the CIDI, the Center for Information and Documentation of Israel, the leading organization dedicated to combating anti-Semitism and spreading awareness of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in the Netherlands. So they all belong to this network of Digitell, which has been coordinated by the Ministry of Strategic Affairs in Israel. And let's go for a first round of what's happening in your country. How do you fight on the networks, on the social media? How do you fight the hatred of Israel? Whoever wants to start.
Can you hear me?
Take the microphone, please. So Aras Natanker from Germany.
Hello. Okay, I hope you can hear me.
Sure.
So I represent an organization which is called German-Israeli Friendship Organization. We have about 6,000 members in over 60 cities all over Germany. And we do like two kinds of events. The first one is cultural events, I would say, so Israeli wine tastings, movie nights, something like this, cooking events, and also political events where we educate about Israel, where we educate about the situation in the Middle East. I think this is a very good platform for everyone in Germany who has a connection to Israel. So we're not a Jewish or not a Christian organization, we're for everyone. And we're also non-partisan, so from every party people can come to us, and people who want to do something for Israel are in our organization. This is what we do. Yeah, first of all.
Okay, who next? Romeo?
Bonjour everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Crif for this invitation. It is a pleasure to have the honor to speak here. So in Portugal, we don't have an active pro-Israel organization, so we have many individual activists like myself trying to work together and build something there. Just to give you a little bit about my background, I am a human rights activist. For many years, I've worked to support young lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people in Portugal. I was coordinator of a local support group. I was a speaker in schools and universities and also a member of the board of the Portuguese LGBT youth organization. And along these years as a human rights activist, I ended up getting involved in also the fight against anti-Semitism and in support of Israel, even though I'm not Jewish myself, I'm not Israeli, and I'm not religious. But nowadays Israel is a great inspiration for myself and for my life. And I can tell you a little bit more about this maybe later. Just some context. So what do I do in support of Israel and against anti-Semitism? So in Portugal, we have a Facebook page called Portuguese-Israeli Friendship, in Portuguese of course, not in English. We have 3,500 followers there, and we also created a group of Portuguese people supporting Israel called Portuguese for Israel, that has 2,500 people there that together they have mobilized to organize demonstrations several times in Portugal. When we felt that the media was not covering what was happening in Israel, terror attacks for instance, we joined together and we bought ads from Facebook, individual people, and we paid and we reached 300,000 people, showing the vehicular terror attacks in Jerusalem at the time that when they were not properly given visibility in the press. Personally, I have given lectures across the United States in more than 10 universities from New York to Los Angeles. I've spoken in Germany at the invitation of the German Israeli Society. I've spoken in Porto at the invitation. Porto is the second largest city in Portugal. At the invitation of the local Jewish community to educate Portuguese teachers about Israel. And I've written for the Israeli press, for the Portuguese press, for the American Jewish press as well. I believe, yes, I think in terms of the more work that we'll do, we'll talk about specifically on campus
we'll take
politics,
it
yes.
one
So
at
I'm
a
not going
time.
to take more time.
Very interesting, because Romeo was telling me that there is not so much anti-Semitism in Portugal, and the Portuguese community is living pretty tranquilly in Portugal, even though there is a big BDS activity, which
Also, the BDS, it's not so bad over there. I can talk a bit more about that later.
Okay, we'll talk about it later.
Just to compliment you, I would like just to add, unfortunately, nowadays we've reached to the point where Jews are moving to Portugal from France because it's
Yes.
safer there. And this is something that is very, very striking.
And Elkan, about Germany.
Oh, no, I'm from the
Oh,
Netherlands.
Netherlands, sorry.
But, well, as you've already been told, I work for CD, which is both an anti-Semitism watchdog and also a pro-Israel advocacy center. We're on walking distance from Parliament, so we engage with Dutch politicians on a daily basis. And about the question about the rising of BDS activities in the Netherlands, was it?
What is your activity to fight
What's my
BDS in the Digitell
What
network?
I think, especially now in the digital era, social media, it's both an opportunity and a threat, I believe, because it's a threat because misinformation can be spread very easily, especially about Israel and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Yet at the same time, it provides us a platform, that's the opportunity, to spread the truth. And I believe if you spread the truth about Israel, people will get on your side and realize that BDS is just plain awful and wrong.
We hope so. Marie-Sarah, how is it in France and what do we do at Crif?
So I think, I work at Crif, so for me, fighting anti-Semitism is fighting anti-Zionism, it's the same. And well, I think our biggest challenge in France is to make people understand that when you are anti-Zionist, you are anti-Semitic. Today, as Ben said, in the street, or I don't know, when you're with friends or whatever, people can say, no, I don't like Israel, you know, I'm not anti-Semitic, I just don't like the country. Okay, that is anti-Semitic, and we need to make people understand. And for that, we are trying at Crif to talk as much as we can with public policies and the government and local policies also. And this is also why we do this today, so we can have a share of what everyone think, and we can tell the public policies what's going on in the Jewish community and in the national community, because it's not only about the Jews in France, it's about all the French people here. The French President Emmanuel Macron said it very clearly, and he said it many times, and the last time was during Crif dinner, and he said anti-Zionism is a new form of anti-Semitism, so now it's a fact, like it's not just an idea, it's not an opinion, it's a fact. So this is our challenge in France, and this is why we are expecting a lot about what's going on December 3rd, when the law proposal of Sylvain Maillard will be in the French Parliament. We wait for this proposal, even if it's not complete, at least it's a start, and it's a good start.
Okay, let's look at a few sides of BDS campaigning in Europe and in the world. One of the big fights of BDS is trying to get on campus. Differently in different countries, we know it's very much stronger in America than it is in Europe. Let me ask the USGF representative, what is the situation today of BDS on campus?
So,
Thank you. So I'm Samuel Lodreyer, I'm the Vice President of USGF. We witness in the campuses clearly a rise in BDS and anti-Zionism in general, and maybe there is two dynamics, two things that we witness in the campuses. First of all, BDS is really infiltrating some organization that has at the beginning nothing to do with BDS. It can be student union. We know that left student unions like UNEF, for example, or even Sud, Solidaire, and so on, they really now are in BDS and organize like anti-Zionist movement. For example, it was the last year during the demonstrations against the ORE law, against the law, the reform of the university. In many universities there was there was blocked. In Sciences Po, for example, one of the things that the unions did is to take off the French flag in front of Sciences Po and to put the Palestinian flag. At the beginning, nothing to do with Israel, nothing to do with Palestine. It was just like a symbol of, a symbol of resistance. And this is spreading the idea that the elites, Israel, it's a bit the same, and of course, this is an anti-Semitic discourse, and this is the second thing. The second thing is always when BDS is doing events, when BDS is rising, there is a rise in anti-Semitism, and the Jews are directly attacked because of anti-Zionism. It was our offices in Tolbiac, in Paris 1, in La Sorbonne. They were attacked during the demonstrations against the law, the reform of universities, and they were not attacked with Nazi cross. We had Nazi cross in all universities also, but we also have inscription tags saying Zionism is racism. This office is an office of racist, Zionist, anti-Goy people. So we really have this thing, and we are trying, of course, to create a counter discourse in order to legitimize Israel, to break Israel prejudices. For example, we have a project aiming at welcoming in the French campuses several Israeli students in order just to have informal talk with French students, and it went pretty well in all the campuses, but in the University of Lyon, in Lyon 2, there was a demonstration, a BDS demonstration against us, and we were rejected. It was a few months ago. We were rejected from the universities by BDS protesters. So it's really hard now to be proud of being Zionist, and this is really a danger for the Jewish people, because of course the Jewish people, the Jewish students, they feel of course unsafe because they are not free, and always when you present yourself as a Jew in the university, one people will come to you and tell, oh, what do you think about the massacre, the killings of the Palestinians by the Israelis? So what we say is, first of all, we are not Israelis, so you are talking to me, but I am a Jew, and being a Jew and an Israeli is different. And secondly, this is far more complex like that, and there is no mass killings of Palestinians by Israelis, so we are trying to do these things.
Let me just say that to hear this, for my generation, is just something unbelievable. That French students, and it reminds me that a recent poll made by USGF showed that 90% of Jewish students in France have suffered from anti-Semitism by one way or another. Aras Nathan, how is it in Germany, these fight on campuses? How is BDS on campuses?
I would say the situation in Germany is quite different. Of course, the campuses in Germany are also very left-leaning, but in the left and radical left, we have a big part of people who are against anti-Semitism and pro-Israel. So it's something, I would say, really specific. That we have a left in Germany that is clearly saying we're against anti-Semitism. We want to cut with the past and with the anti-Semitic tropes that have been around for hundreds of years, and support Israel. So this is mostly the people from our organization. And we are really effective on the campuses where we are. On every campus, we are on 28 campuses in Germany, and on almost every campus we have a declaration against BDS and for closer ties with Israel. And only this year we had the first ever German-Israeli Students' Conference in Frankfurt. It was a great success. Hundreds of students came, and we had a big resolution also against BDS for calling with closer cooperations with Israel. So this is what we do on campuses, but this is only a small part of students. But still, we don't have BDS on campuses in a way that you do in France or in Great Britain or in the US. We don't have it. BDS in Germany is mostly elderly people, I would say 70 plus, I hope I heard any feelings, who are like from the peace camp, who are like classic anti-imperialists, hate the US, hate Israel, but there's a really small percentage of people who are really hardcore pro-BDS. What I would say what we have in Germany is more anti-Semitic tropes that you don't talk about like directly. And so it's very common to criticize Israel in anti-Semitic ways. For example, to say, just like BDS does, that Israel is an apartheid state. This sounds strange to hear at first, because, I mean, everyone who's been to Israel knows that there's no apartheid. But this is an argument around the corner to say Israel is just as illegitimate as apartheid South Africa. Right. So this is the way it works today.
Elkan, in the Netherlands, do you have many pro-BDS speakers that come in the universities?
Well, I can tell you of one very notorious incident. Just in the report Ben showed you, you saw the name Rosmea Ode. She claims to be a human rights activist while she is a terrorist who killed 2 students in a bombing in Jerusalem. Last year she was invited by student groups to come to Amsterdam to speak. So just to show about BDS activism at the universities, luckily it doesn't happen often, but when it happens, it turns out nasty. And luckily the university afterwards took action. They weren't aware of the event taking place because it took place at a location that they did not need to get a permit for. But afterwards, which we're very happy with, the university closed down the location. Students are no longer allowed to have events there because it was basically a location they were not allowed to have events. And then to have an event with someone who claims to be a human rights activist but is in fact someone who committed a deadly act of terror. So we were very happy that the university took action, but nonetheless Jewish students felt very unsafe, and they even wrote an open letter to the board of the university saying there needs to be a change in policy, there needs to be zero tolerance to such kind of incidents, because we want to go to here to study, to learn, and not to be afraid that if we are safe here, because if students here want to listen to someone who has committed a deadly, cowardly act of terrorism, then what are they going to think about us? So it's a very worrying development that we really should try to stay on top of, I believe.
Very good. And we need to stay on top of this. Marie-Sarah, let's move, time is running short, so let's move to the political arena.
We can have maybe just a word from Anne-Sophie Sebon from AJC.
Okay, but she can answer my other question.
Yeah, but the campuses in the US maybe.
Oh, on the US campuses, okay.
Thank you, Marisa. I'll be very short. So I'm Anne-Sophie Sebon. I'm the director of the American Jewish Community in Paris. So I can reflect on the reports of our colleagues in the US regarding BDS. We've seen, it's been 5 or 6 years that we've seen the BDS movement evolving on campuses. They used to try to convince the administration of the campuses to pass legislation to officially boycott Israel. But they came to the conclusion that it actually never worked. So they are trying new strategies, new tactics. BDS movement is led by the organization called Students for Justice in Palestine. They are present in over 100 campuses in the US. So now they've been trying, since they cannot really push the legislation from the administration, they try to push for referendums from all the students in campuses. So they vote for BDS to push the presidents of the university to pass legislation. They haven't managed it, but it's still very symbolic. It happens in Brown University, in Bernard University recently. They also try to push universities to stop their programs in Israel. There was a case in Michigan University where some professors sent emails to their students saying that if they want to study in Israel, they won't get any recommendations letters from them. They also try to boycott some conferences every time there's an Israeli speaker. There was Tip Livni who was invited in North Carolina. There was a boycott of the conference. They also they bought tickets for a conference where the Israeli consulate in New York was supposed to speak. In Harvard, they bought tickets, they came in, and then they left the room almost empty. So just a word about what AGC is doing to fight against it on campuses. So first, we of course advocate for anti-BDS legislation at all levels. We managed to get, we guided one in California, in Illinois. We also brought together 50 governors of 50 different US states to officially say their condemnation of BDS. And what we do is that we also bring presidents of universities to Israel. And it's a quite efficient way to educate them about the country. And at the end of the day, they are on our side, and we haven't seen any president of university going on the line of the BDS movement.
Thank you.
Longer.
Thank you. So we move quicker now, and let's move on the political world. We also have politicians who obviously support the BDS movement. In France, for example, the extreme left. Marissa, would you say a word about what's happening in France and how we're fighting it?
No, in fact, we have politicians in France who officially support BDS. I say officially, and I'm not afraid about it. We have the leader of the extreme left party, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who is officially supporting BDS protest, boycott movements in France toward Israel, and in the same time saying in all the media that he is not anti-Semitic and he loves the Jews and comes to all the...
He doesn't like Crif.
Yes, that's different. It's not really Jewish. It's, so yes, for us, okay, Jean-Luc Mélenchon is not an issue. Like it's not on our view. Like we don't really care actually. But the thing is, people who are listening to him think that yes, Israel is an apartheid state. Israel is killing Palestinians. And what is the meaning in France of this? It means Jews are killing Palestinians. So, anti-Zionism in France, okay, it's a problem for us as Jews because, yeah, we don't like this, okay, it's a fact. But the main problem is that when you do that, you bring anti-Semitism in France. And that is why this is one of the biggest problems for Crif.
Is that a fact?
Yeah, we fight it because we don't want more anti-Semitism. When there is a problem in Gaza, let's say for now, Israel is under fire again, so they are defending itself. And in France, you have on social media, but also in the street. I wouldn't be surprised in the following days that we will have like protests in the street for Gaza, for supporting Palestinian people, which is okay. The problem is, we will see signs, we will see baseline with words like Jews should be dead, and that is not okay. This is anti-Semitic, and for us, when the politicians are supporting this, they're supporting the anti-Semitic acts and words, and that is what we fight the most, actually, I think.
In Germany, you have politicians supporting BDS?
Yes, one or two, but they're from the left and they are not relevant. Because also the left will have people who support Israel. That's like, it's only a small part. But I mean, you saw in Ben's presentation, we have great legislation against BDS. Everything is fine in that field. But what I'm missing in Germany is like a real friendship with Israel. They would say Israel is our friend. We need to really support them, not only because of the past, but also because we share common values. And I want to say one thing to you. I think we need to show more. I don't want to be optimistic, but I want you to encourage to be more maybe aggressive. Because we are on the right side. We know that Israel is a great state. We know that it's a safe haven. We all love Zionism, at least I do. And I think we can show that more offensive to people. We don't have to hold back. I mean, there are security issues and concerns, no question about it. But let's give it a try. Let's give it a try to be more to have more self-esteem, to show more support as well.
What can we do on social media? And what can we do together? What is interesting about this Digitell network is the fact that under the coordination of the Ministry of Strategic Affairs in Israel, people have started to work together in all different countries, building together campaigns and building together some strong ideas. You're an expert.
Is it okay if I just add some words about the political situation in Portugal, because I think it's really interesting. So just to mention the case of Portugal. So Portugal typically is a kind of moderate country towards Israel. It follows standard EU positions. Doesn't have a lot of affair with Israel, but it's also not very much against it. What we are seeing nowadays is an increased polarization between left and right in the support for Israel, as I think we are seeing in other countries. So the left is starting to vote in bloc against Israel, and the right in favor of it. But in terms of like on the ground, the relations, Portugal has invested massively in Jewish tourism, in bringing Jewish people to visit, because we have a long history of Jewish heritage before the Inquisition. The Portuguese Parliament unanimously approved a Portuguese Jewish return law. So in Portugal, in a similar way to Spain, but in a more actually broader way than Spain, any descendant of a Portuguese Jew, so any person that has a connection to a Sephardi Portuguese community, can apply and reclaim their Portuguese citizenship. They don't have to live in Portugal, they don't have to speak Portuguese, they just need not to have a criminal record and to have a connection to a Portuguese community. And what is happening is that this is having a massive effect. Right now, the first national community of origin of people that are becoming Portuguese or applying to become Portuguese is Brazil, and the second one is Israel. Israelis are now the second national group becoming Portuguese. Yes, it's amazing. We have so many Portuguese people now living in Israel. And this is really good science. Our former Secretary of Minister was several times in Israel to promote the Israelis to visit Portugal. She, for the first time, built a stand in a fair, at the Tel Aviv Tourism Fair, and she has now been promoted to Minister for Work. She has really good relations with Israel, so we are hopeful. And we had elections very recently in Portugal, and for the first time we elected a member of parliament from a new party that has explicitly in his program supporting moving the embassy of Portugal from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which is very exciting. No party whatsoever until now, left or right, had committed to support this or even discussed it, and we are very happy to see this. So, and also in terms of anti-Semitism, the last anti-Semitic incident in Portugal that I have visibility was like 10 or 15 years ago, and it was vandalizing graves in a Jewish cemetery, which is very bad. But so you can see we don't have reports of any kind of like physical violent incident, nothing. So we are hopeful that things remain this way. Unfortunately, we see some people, some Jews from other countries coming from Portugal for safety. We would like people to go there for other reasons, which also go. We're very happy for that. Yes, and okay, let's talk about the actual topic. What we can do online to support Israel. So, first of all, I disagree with some of the strategies that we have here. In terms of BDS, I think we have to realize that the BDS movement is actually, in my view, maybe it's from my Portuguese view, it's a minority. It's a minority of very radical activists that are very outspoken. And we have to realize this. They are waging a psychological war. They are trying to brand their concept, which they have successfully done, as BDS, so it has a name, and they are trying to put themselves as an entity, as a rival of Jewish organizations, big Jewish communities, the Israeli government. And the moment that we start talking to these organizations as if and nominating them as if they are a rival, they are getting their stage. They don't have a stage. They don't have a stage. They are fringe activists looking for attention. And And we have to be very careful. We should fight boycotts, but we should be very careful not to provide them with publicity. There are people that have been studying this, and they find that many times when people are talking about BDS in the media and about these activists, it's actually pro-Israel activists and the people from the Jewish community who are giving them the greatest publicity. So we should be careful about that. In terms of other strategies we can do, we have two things we have to do. One, we have to build a positive long-term relationship between the people in different countries in Israel. So for instance, I fell in love with Israel because I was following a blog called Lisbon Tel Aviv, written by a Portuguese math teacher in Lisbon, and he was constantly posting beautiful things about Israeli history, different moments in time, about the kibbutzim, about even like the campaign to elect Yitzhak Rabin, for instance. So on the one hand, we have to present Israel and talk about itself independently and in a positive way, so people build an emotional connection. On the other hand, I think what we are missing and we really have to do is show to the people why Israel is defending itself. We have to show people, not just cherry tomatoes and startups in Israel. We have to say, yes, Israel is engaged in defensive actions because Israel is being bombed, because there are rockets falling on the cities, because there are suicide bombers being sent to target Israelis. And one of the greatest things Digitell helped us build is that by being organized in such an efficient and fast communicating network, by the time that the Portuguese press is reporting that Israel is firing on Hamas targets in Gaza, all my Twitter network that has journalists, that has members of the parliament, that has academics, they already know because I already told everyone that Israel has been bombed for days with hundreds of rockets. So when the Portuguese TV tries to ignore this, everyone is already aware of this.
Congratulations, we are running out of time. The plenary session will start in about 5-7 minutes, so if you want to take seats. Thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you to the panelists. We wanted to show you something today at the convention. First of all, that there are international forces put together to fight BDS and to fight for Israel. And second, we wanted to show you that the young generation is standing up for Israel and to fight BDS.